Steve Jobs, Apple's legendary co-founder, was named one of Time's 20 most influential Americans of all time. In Time's book, The 100 Most Influential People of All Time, Steve Jobs was in the top 20. They begin to gratify him, saying Jobs was a visionary whose great genius was for design. He pushed and pushed to make the interface between computers and people elegant, simple, and delightful. Time continued. He always claimed his goal was to create products that were insanely great. One of Jobs' most influential speeches was when he presented the first iPhone. Even though Steve Jobs made many revolutionary products, his road to success was the most influential of all. On February 24, 1955, in San Francisco, Stephen Paul Jobs was born. Right after he was born, Steve Jobs was adopted by Paul and Clara Jobs. Jobs knew from a very early age that he was adopted. The permanent scar of being adopted left a huge role in Steve Jobs' life. Later on, this would be shown in his pursuit to control everything in the Apple company. Later on, they decided to move to Los Altos. This Los Altos home is not only his childhood home, but where Apple first started. In the attached garage, he and Steve Wozniak toiled to assemble the first 50 Apple I computers. The pair sold them to Paul Terrell's Bite Shop in Mountain View for $500 each. Jobs moved to the house with his foster parents as a 7th grader and lived there through high school. The 7-member Los Altos Historical Commission has scheduled a historic property evaluation for the single-story ranch-style house on Monday. If this designation is ultimately approved, then the house on 2066 Christ Drive in Los Altos, California will have to be preserved and will be a historical site known to many. Even before Jobs started elementary school, his mother had taught him how to read. This, however, led to some problems once he got to school. He said, "I was kind of bored for the first few years, so I occupied myself by getting into trouble." It also soon became clear that Jobs, by both nature and nurture, was not disposed to accept authority. His school, Monte Loma Elementary, is where he encountered his boredom by playing pranks. He convinced some kids to tell them the combination numbers for their bike locks, and when he was in 3rd grade, the pranks became a bit more dangerous. He said, "One time we set off an explosive under the chair of our teacher, Mrs. Thurman. We gave her a nervous twitch." By then, however, his father had begun to treat him as special, and in his calm but firm manner, he made it clear that he expected the school to do the same. Near the end of 4th grade, his teacher, Mrs. Hill, had Jobs tested. He tested at a high school sophomore level. He was intellectually special. The school made the remarkable proposal that he skip 2 grades and go right into 7th. When he skipped the grades, he was a socially awkward loner who found himself with kids a year older. Even though Crichton Middle was only 8 blocks from Monte Loma Elementary, in many ways it was a world apart for him. Jobs was often bullied in the middle of 7th grade. In 9th grade, Jobs went to Homestead High. He had few friends his own age, but he got to know some seniors who were immersed in the counterculture of the late 1960s. He became intellectually stimulated during his last 2 years in high school. During Jobs' high school career, he took John McCollum's electronics class. While a student in this class, Jobs became friends with the graduate who was the teacher's all-time favorite, Stefan Wozniak. After high school, Steve enrolled into Reed College. Reed had only 1,000 students, which was half the number of Homestead High School. It was known for its free-spirited hippie life. Jobs quickly became bored with college. He liked being at Reed, just not taking the required classes. He also began to feel guilty because he was wasting his parents' money on an education that didn't seem worthwhile. After Jobs dropped out of college, he began to get into Zen Buddhism. This allowed him to be at his fullest potential and to let Apple flourish to its maximum. Jobs showed the world through his new mindset that you could achieve any goal and that nothing was impossible. The simplistic values of Zen Buddhism that he had learned over the years were exemplified in his products. By reflecting and honoring Steve Jobs' life, it goes to show that this creative genius was one of the most influential Americans in history. He changed the way people thought of life and encouraged people to go beyond their goals because nothing was impossible to him. Not only did he impact the world socially, but also technologically. He interpreted technology like no one had prior to him. He brought in a new, innovative way to go about engineering and configure technology into its fullest potential. He also allowed people to tie in emotion with their technological devices. Although Jobs' life was cut off short, he became one of the most known and thanked people in the world, and in a short span of years had rearranged the way society thrives. Jobs did the unthinkable to most people, but everything that he had accomplished and said had always crossed his mind. A quote that Steve Jobs abided by was in Apple's Think Different commercial in 1997. It said, "The ones who are crazy enough to think that they can change the world are the ones who do."